Hello, welcome to another edition of SSN TV News. I'm Tess Nasilevich, Managing Editor of Security Systems News, and I'm here today at the ISC West Show with Carter Ryerson, and he is the president and founder of Best Defense, a fire company that's based in Wisconsin. Carter, maybe you could start off by just telling us a little bit more about your company. I know you've been around since 1994.
Sure.
Where are you located specifically? And
our main office is in Waunakee, Wisconsin, just outside of Madison. We have a branch office in Brookfield, Wisconsin, and another small branch office in Rockford, Illinois. We've been in business for 18 years now. We monitor about 1,100 customers. I've been a Silent Night Fahrenheit dealer for 10 to 12 years or so. We use their Silent Night product for non-proprietary installations and Fahrenheit for some of the more advanced products that we need to fill.
Yeah, one of the things you were telling me are about some interesting trends that you've noticed in the fire business, and one of them that you mentioned is in Wisconsin, a move towards requiring NICET training, and you yourself are NICET level 4. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Wisconsin's unique in that there's no licensing requirement and there's no licensing available for fire alarm professionals, which, I mean, considering you need a license to be a beautician or some non-life safety type of job description, to not have one available in our industry is a concern. So a lot of smaller municipalities and even some of the larger ones are beginning now to require NICET level certification in order to submit plans for review and so on and so forth. We're also beginning to see some municipalities and some job specs requiring NICET fire alarm certification for at least the supervisor on the installation and so forth. And it's not just a requirement, it is a good idea. All it does is enforces and ensures that the people installing the fire and life safety products have the knowledge and the code experience to do it properly. So considering it's a life safety system, that's important.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned because you are NICET 4 and a number of your employees are getting NICET training. Has that put you in a position to get more jobs? It
has. It's opened up some opportunities for us. We recently contracted for a job for a VA project that required NICET level certification at a high level. And I was one of few people who could meet that bid spec because of that. But in addition to that, it helped us design it properly by ensuring that I had the knowledge and training on the codes to know which codes to apply to the project.
Yeah. And another thing we were talking about a different trend. You had mentioned combined. A product that's a combined ECS and fire alarm. What's the trend you're talking about there, and what's the product, and how will it help in this area?
The trend, of course, that I'm seeing is based on codes. And the code requirement for fire alarms and the code requirement for life safety and emergency evacuation is beginning to be enforced more and more. With the VA project, for example, the VA Fire Protection Design Manual requires emergency voice communications in VA-owned buildings. It doesn't apply to this project because it's simply a reinstallation. However, government buildings and public buildings are more and more beginning to require emergency communication systems. And Silent Night Fahrenheit, with their ECS system, has done a wonderful job of integrating and engineering a product from the design from the ground up. That's not just a fire alarm, it's not just a voice evacuation system. They built it from the ground up to also evacuate for emergencies. And a lot of people think, well, why do we need ECS? Why is emergency communications important? But I mean, if you can envision your typical school, and a fire alarm going off in a school, the first thing they do is they evacuate the building, or the children go running outside. Well, in a worst case scenario for security at a school, one of the last things you want to do is evacuate an entire school and run all your building or all your children out into contained areas and so on and so forth. So it really gives property managers within government buildings or schools, in other types of applications, manners to deal with the true worst case scenario. Without a system like that, there's no way to control the masses.
Right.
With an emergency communication system, they can say, we have a tornado, respond to the center part of the building. We have a gas leak on the south end of the building, evacuate to the north end of the building. You have options. We are seeing some of the OSHA code requirements can require emergency notification systems, and the ECS system from Fahrenheit is the first fire alarm panel that I've seen that integrates that directly in, and they've partnered up very well with System Sensor to develop the speaker strobes that have the fire alarm strobe and the emergency evacuation strobe built right into it. So from the ground up, they've developed this product line as a good solution.
And in terms of getting jobs, does that help you? Do you think?
We'll see. It's a newer product. I think it's going to. There's still a lot of confusion out there over where it's required and so on and so forth. In our state, in our jurisdiction anyway. Throughout the country, there's more and more requirements for it in the tornado alleys, for example, where they'll use it for tornado types of systems. But I see the trend of that picking up across the board. The day of the traditional fire alarm system is gone. Most systems that we install today have one or no smoke detectors. They're simply sprinkler monitoring systems. But we're now looking at them as more of a life safety system, where we have ADA points of refuge, for example, in stairwells that go back to a head end. We have emergency communication systems being required. We have sprinkler monitoring and notification being required throughout buildings. And I really think that this ECS panel is a great first step in the right direction of integrating that together into a very professional combined product. So I think that's a trend that we'll see continue. And I'm excited that the company we was the first one to really do a great job with it. So
great. And then just briefly, you have mentioned that your company takes on a lot of challenging projects, and one you mentioned is, I believe, called Tudor Oaks project.
Tudor Oaks was an interesting project. It's a very large retirement community, and shaped much like a wagon wheel of the Old West, where the center hub is a community center with a chapel, medical facilities for clinics, hairstylists, a library, a kitchen. We even put a theater in there with a 16-foot screen so they could watch the Packers win the Super Bowl last year. So we provided an entire integrated system throughout that facility with card readers. We used RS2 throughout that building. We supplied a Fahrenheit IFB 2000. There's about 1,100 horn strobes in that building. The local code, the local municipal ordinance for the fire alarm required strobes well above and beyond what the state would require. And the Fahrenheit product worked very well at allowing us to do that in that very large project. So it's been a fun one, and we've thrown about every project that we use in there. We use a device called the Cellivator, which is a device we developed ourselves. Cellular communication for elevator emergency phones. So there's a dozen or so Cellivators installed in there, so they didn't need to purchase a dozen phone lines to monitor their elevators. So it was a good win for us. It's been about a 2-year project. It's just wrapping up right now.
That's great.
So.
Well, thank you so much. Very nice hearing from you, and some very interesting things going on with your company.
Thank you, Tess.
And thank you for joining us on SSN TV News.